A maid spots danger everyone missed, and saves a billionaire's life. Watch this gripping tale now. The Langford estate was a palace disguised as a home. High ceilings, gold-framed paintings, expensive carpet so soft it muffled every step. But in its quietest room, behind heavy double doors, sat a man who once commanded entire boardrooms. Now reduced to a frail figure in a wheelchair, Edward Langford had built an empire with his mind and iron will. Billionaire, philanthropist, dealmaker. But none of that mattered now. At 74, his world had shrunk to this suite, a fireplace he rarely felt warm enough to enjoy, and a view of gardens he no longer walked through. His recent heart surgery had been successful, at least, that's what the doctors kept saying, but recovery had left him pale, thin, and easily tired. Everyone treated him like a fragile heirloom. Everyone except her. Grace Williams moved quietly, almost invisibly, through the Langford estate. She was a maid hired only months before the surgery. A black woman in her late 20s with calm eyes and a measured step. She seemed to glide rather than walk. Her crisp black and white uniform was always spotless, her hair neatly pulled back. She spoke only when needed. But when she did, people noticed. Grace noticed things others didn't. While the on-call doctors discussed Edward's chart in clipped voices, she noticed the slight tremor in his left hand when he reached for his tea. While the butler assured guests that Mr. Langford was recovering wonderfully, she caught the way his breath hitched after climbing the slightest incline in his wheelchair. No one asked for her opinion, so she kept her thoughts to herself, until the morning she saw it. She had just finished polishing the brass lamp by his bedside when Edward shifted in his chair. The collar of his thick brown robe fell open, revealing a faint patch of red just above his heart. At first, she thought it was a drop of tea. But when she stepped closer, her stomach tightened. It was blood, not bright, fresh blood, but dark, seeping through in a slow, steady bloom. "Sir," she said softly, "you're bleeding." Edward glanced down, frowned briefly, then waved a hand as if brushing off an insect. "It's nothing, Grace. Just the stitches healing. The doctor said it's normal." Grace's eyes didn't leave the spot. She'd seen surgical wounds before. Her younger brother had needed an operation years ago, and she remembered the surgeon warning the family about signs of infection or internal trouble. That dark shade, the way it kept spreading, it wasn't right. But Edward had already wheeled himself toward the window. Conversation over. That night, Grace lay in her small room in the servants' quarters, staring at the ceiling. The estate was silent, the kind of silence that usually comforted her. But tonight, it pressed against her ears. She kept seeing that red stain, kept replaying the slight slump in Edward's shoulders, the way his hand trembled more than usual as he moved the wheelchair. She told herself it wasn't her place. She was just a maid. There were trained professionals for this. Doctors, nurses, people with degrees on their walls. But another voice inside her pushed back. If they were doing their jobs, why did no one else notice? By morning, she'd made a decision. When she entered his suite that day with his breakfast tray, Edward was sitting by the fireplace, robe loose, a distant look in his pale blue eyes. She placed the tray on the table, then glanced at his chest again. Her heart sank. The stain was bigger, darker, spreading. "Sir," she began carefully, "I think we need to have that wound checked again." Edward didn't look at her. "Grace, I told you." "With respect," she interrupted, a risk that made her pulse race, "I think it's worse than you think." His head turned sharply. No one interrupted Edward Langford. But instead of anger, she saw fatigue in his gaze. "It's nothing," he said again, softer this time. Grace stood her ground, though her palms were damp. "Nothing doesn't grow overnight. Nothing doesn't make your skin this pale." For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the fire crackling between them. Grace's heart pounded in her ears. She didn't know if he'd order her out or listen, but she knew one thing. She wouldn't ignore this. Not when every instinct told her something was wrong. What she didn't know was that within the next few minutes, the situation would turn from quiet concern to a fight for his life. Edward's pale eyes lingered on her for a few seconds longer. Then he sighed and looked away. "Grace, I've lived long enough to know my body. I'm fine." Grace's jaw tightened. "And I've seen enough to know when someone isn't," she replied quietly. He gave a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." Before she could answer, his fingers twitched against the armrest. His breathing hitched, and his body leaned forward slightly, as if the weight of the world had suddenly settled on his shoulders. Grace's instincts flared. "Sir." Edward's lips parted to respond, but what came out was not words. It was a low, pained gasp. His hand shot to his chest, clutching just above the robe's collar, where the stain had spread wider. His wheelchair trembled under the sudden movement. In an instant, Grace was beside him, one hand gripping his shoulder, the other pulling the robe aside to reveal the wound. The skin around it was red, inflamed, the stitches straining against a deep, dark seep of blood. She could smell the metallic tang in the air. Her voice was firm now, almost commanding. "You're not fine. Stay still." Edward tried to speak, but his words dissolved into a shallow cough. Grace didn't wait for permission. She reached for the napkin on the breakfast tray, folded it, and pressed it gently but firmly against the wound. Warmth soaked through almost instantly. Her mind raced. The private doctor was 2 floors away, the estate sprawling. If she left him to get help, there was no telling how quickly he might weaken. She made a decision. With her free hand, she pulled the small cordless phone from the side table and hit the emergency button for the medical staff. "This is Grace in Mr. Langford's suite. He's bleeding heavily from his surgical site and showing signs of distress. I need a doctor here immediately." The operator began to ask questions, but Grace cut in. "No delays now." She dropped the phone back onto the table without waiting for a response. Edward's breathing grew uneven. "Grace, it's just a setback." "No," she said firmly, meeting his gaze. "It's your life, and I'm not going to watch it slip away while everyone tells you it's nothing." Minutes felt like hours. She kept pressure on the wound, adjusting the napkin as more blood seeped through. Edward's skin was clammy beneath her fingers, but she could feel the faint, stubborn rhythm of his heartbeat. Finally, the door burst open. Dr. Myers, the estate's on-call physician, hurried in, followed by a security guard carrying a medical bag. The doctor's expression darkened the moment he saw Edward's chest. "He's hemorrhaging," Myers muttered, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "We need to transfer him to the hospital immediately. Help me stabilize him." Grace stepped back only when Myers took over, but she stayed close enough to see the paramedics rush in moments later with a stretcher. Edward's eyes found hers as they lifted him. "You were right," he whispered, his voice weak but sincere. She forced a small smile. "We'll talk about it when you're back." The ambulance siren faded into the distance. The suite felt unbearably quiet again. But the silence was no longer heavy, it was charged, waiting for news. Hours later, Grace was summoned to the hospital. She walked into Edward's private recovery room to find him propped up in bed, looking tired but alive. Dr. Myers stood at his bedside, explaining that the bleeding had been caused by a partially ruptured artery near the surgical site. If it had gone unnoticed, Myers said gravely, he wouldn't have survived the night. Edward turned his head toward Grace. "They told me you refused to leave my side until help came." "I just did what anyone should have," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No, Grace. Everyone else ignored it. You saw me." From the drawer beside his bed, he pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Inside was a letter and a set of documents. She scanned them, her eyes widening. "It's the deed to a house," he explained. By the coast. Somewhere you can live without answering to anyone. You've earned it. Her throat tightened. I can't accept. You will, Edward interrupted gently, because I wouldn't be here without you. For the first time in years, Grace saw softness in his expression. Not the guarded look of a billionaire used to control, but the gratitude of a man who'd been given a second chance. And as she left the room that day, the sun spilling through the hospital windows, Grace realized she hadn't just saved his life. She'd reminded him it was worth living. Grace stood by the suite window, her dark skin still warm from the rush, a heavy relief settling as the siren faded. Relieved? He's alive, she whispered, her voice low, the carpet soft. The napkin lay stained, the relief quiet, the room dim, her hands trembling, the danger past, a new bond hinted. The fire crackled low, the silence thick, a shift beginning. Thoughtful. Did I do enough? She murmured, her tone soft, the wheelchair still, the relief holding, her heart slowing, the estate calm, the day marked with hope. The butler lingered in the hall, his face pale, a shame creeping as he recalled his oversight. Nervous? I should have seen it, he whispered, his voice low, the door ajar. Grace's dark skin tensed, the shame hidden, the hall quiet, his duty questioned, the moment heavy, the staff's neglect surfacing. The doctor approached, his eyes down, a regret evident. Hesitant. We missed it, he murmured, his tone soft, the bag heavy. Her dark skin eased slightly, the shame growing, the sweet dim, his pride shaken, the relief tempered, the air thick with guilt. Grace met Edward's gaze, her dark skin warm from his thanks, a flicker of trust breaking through the relief. Gentle. You believed me, she said, her voice soft, the envelope near. His nod lingered, the trust flickering, the hospital brightening, her efforts seen, a bond hinted, the day easing, a smile forming. The nurse smiled, her face kind, her voice warm. Kind. You saved him, she said, her tone gentle, the room filling. Grace's dark skin glowed, the trust growing, the shame fading, the relief firm, her role clear, the future opening, the night promising light. Grace returned to the estate, her dark skin steady as she cleaned, a quiet strength settling deep. Determined. I did my part, she said, her voice low, the lamp polished. The deed sat in her pocket, the strength quiet, the sweet calm, her hand sure, the butler's shame lingering, the day marked with purpose. The housekeeper approached, her face soft, a shift evident. Accepting. You proved us wrong, she said, her tone warm, the carpet quiet. Grace's dark skin eased, the strength holding, the trust firm, the shame gone, her place secure, the mansion glowing, the night clear with resolve. Grace stood in the servants' quarters, her dark skin warm from the deed's weight, the hospital visit echoing as a truth surfaced. The estate's quiet stirred a new tension. Grace sat on her bed, her dark skin calm as she read a note in the envelope, a truth creeping out. Curious. He knew the risk, she whispered, her voice low, the paper rustling. Edward's words glowed, the truth surfacing slow, the room dim, her heart racing, a duty hinted, the night growing heavy with wonder. The butler approached, his face tense, a secret in hand. Thoughtful. The doctor hid it, he said, his tone soft, the shame lingering. Grace's dark skin prickled, the truth emerging, the quarters quiet, her role shifting, the note's weight growing, the day filled with questions. The staff gathered in the kitchen, their voices sharp, tension filling the air as they eyed Grace. Nervous. She overstepped, one shouted, her tone harsh, the pots clanging. Grace's dark skin tightened, her hand shaking, the tension rising fast, the room crowded, her place questioned, the truth at risk, the moment teetering. The assistant stormed in, his voice cold, his eyes hard. Angry. This threatens us all, he snapped, his tone sharp, the table shaking. Grace's dark skin paled, the tension mounting, the kitchen tense, her courage tested, the sweet's memory looming, the night thick with strain. A maid lingered, her face unsure, her voice hesitant as she faced Grace. Unsure? Was it worth it? She asked, her tone low, the broom still. Grace's dark skin tensed, her resolve shaky, the support wavering, the room dim, her hands cold, the decision doubted, the moment fragile. The housekeeper paused, her stance stiff, a shift evident. Hesitant. "This could cost us," she murmured, her tone soft, the stove quiet. Grace's dark skin eased slightly, the support unsteady, the kitchen warm, her welcome uncertain, the truth's weight pressing, the night deep with doubt. Edward called from the hospital, his voice warm, a flicker of hope breaking through the tension. "Gentle." "You saved me," he said, his tone soft, the phone crackling. Grace's dark skin glowed, the hope lingering, the deed near, her heart lifting, the quarters bright, a bond hinted, the day easing. A nurse visited, her face kind, her voice steady. Reassuring. "He's grateful," she said, her tone warm, the door open. Grace's dark skin warmed, the hope growing, the support returning, the staff's doubt fading, her role affirmed, the future opening, the night promising calm. Grace held the nurse's words close, her dark skin warm from the hospital call, the deed in hand as a choice loomed. The estate's tension pushed her toward a decision. Grace paced her room, her dark skin tense under the dim light, her mind wrestling with a choice as the estate hummed outside. Unsure. "Should I take the house or stay?" she whispered, her voice low, the bed creaking. The note's truth lingered, the staff's doubt pressing, the choice awaiting, the room quiet, her hands cold, the future hazy. The window framed the estate's glow, the deed heavy, a step needed. Thoughtful. "What's best for me?" she murmured, her tone soft, the choice looming, her role shaky, her heart torn, the hope weighing, the night thick with thought. A soft knock broke the silence. The housekeeper entered, her dark skin warm as she offered advice, aid stepping in. "Kind. You deserve peace," she said, her voice gentle, the door ajar. Grace's dark skin eased, her hands steadying, the aid arriving like a friend, the room brightening, the words lifting, the tension softening. The butler joined, his face kind, his voice firm. Reassuring. "We support you now," he said, his tone soft, standing near. The housekeeper nodded, the aid growing strong, Grace's resolve firming, the room warming, a shield against doubt forming, the estate's walls steadying. Grace faced the staff, her dark skin bright with resolve, courage flickering stronger. "Gentle. I'll decide my way," she said, her voice soft, the note near. The butler's smile lingered, the courage strengthening, the quarters behind, her heart bold, a new stand hinted, the day hopeful. A gardener arrived, his face steady, his voice warm. Confident. "You're brave," he said, his tone gentle, the room filling. Grace's dark skin glowed, the courage growing, the aid holding, the doubt fading, her role clear, the future opening, the night promising strength. Edward called again, his dark skin calm as he spoke, a hint of clarity breaking through. "Curious. Choose what you need," he said, his voice low, the phone warm. His gratitude showed, the clarity beginning, the room still, her heart racing, the truth nearing, the estate's cold fading. The nurse visited, her small gift in hand, a connection forming. "Gentle. You earned this," she murmured, her tone soft, the sun rising. Grace's dark skin eased, the clarity growing, the past aligning, her choice shifting, the quarters' warmth lifting, the day clear with purpose. Grace held the nurse's gift, her dark skin warm from the clarity of Edward's call, the deed in hand as a revelation loomed. The estate's quiet hinted at a turning point. Grace sat with the housekeeper, her dark skin calm as they opened the box, a revelation breaking open. "Curious. It's her savings," the housekeeper said, her voice low, the coins glinting. Grace's mother's effort glowed, the revelation unfolding, the fire crackling, her heart racing, the deed nearby, the truth nearing, the air charged. The butler brought a letter, his face soft, a secret revealed. Gentle. She planned for you, he murmured, his tone soft, the paper old. Grace's dark skin prickled, the revelation hitting, the quarters quiet, her past stirring, Edward's eyes warm, the bond deepening, the moment heavy. The assistant confronted her, his voice sharp, challenges filling the air as she stood firm. Nervous. You're causing chaos, he shouted, his tone harsh, the desk shaking. Grace's dark skin tightened, her hands trembling, the challenges rising fast, the room tense, her place questioned, the truth at risk, the moment teetering. The staff whispered, their faces cold, their doubt growing. Angry. She's too bold, one muttered, her tone low, the hall buzzing. Grace's dark skin paled, the challenges mounting, the estate noisy, her courage tested, the sweet safety looming, the night thick with pressure. Grace faced the assistant, her dark skin bold under the chandelier's light, her voice steady despite the storm. Confident. I'll protect what's right, she said, her tone firm, the letter in hand. Edward stood by, his support quiet, the resilience shining through, the room still, her scars a strength, the bond clear, the moment commanding. The gardener joined, his stance firm, his gaze warm. Determined. We're with you, he said, his voice strong, the garden door open. Grace's dark skin glowed, the resilience holding, the challenges met, the estate calming, her role affirmed, the revelation standing tall, the day bright with resolve. The study grew quiet, Grace's dark skin warm as Edward spoke, a moment of unity settling. Hopeful. We're a team now, he said, his voice low, the fire steady. The letter smiled, the unity sinking in, the room peaceful, her heart full, the past healing, a family hinted. The housekeeper nodded, her small gesture firm, a bond forming. Gentle. You're one of us, she murmured, her tone soft, the snow falling. Grace's dark skin eased, the unity growing, the resilience shining, the challenges fading, the night promising answers, the story nearing its peak. Grace stood in the study, her dark skin warm from the housekeeper's nod, the letter in hand as a reward neared. The estate's quiet promised a final harmony. The grand hall filled with light, Edward's voice firm as he faced the staff, a reward unfolding. Confident. Grace gets a home and a role, he said, his tone strong, the deed raised. The assistant's silence hung, the reward granted clear, the room buzzing, Grace's dark skin bright, the letter safe, her heart full, the future shining. The lawyer signed, his voice steady, the papers crisp. Serious. It's official, he said, his tone low, the pen down. Grace's dark skin glowed, the reward holding, the estate quiet, her struggles eased, the staff's doubt fading, the day marked with promise, the moment powerful. Grace hugged Edward, her dark skin warm with tears, love breaking through the reward. Gentle. You're my family, she whispered, her voice soft, the letter near. He stood, his face soft, the bonds proven in his embrace, the hall still, her hand steady, the past healed, the connection deep, the trust strong. He spoke, his voice warm, the staff listening. Earnest. We're together, he murmured, his tone gentle, the papers aside. Grace's dark skin eased, the bonds growing firm, the reward sealing them, the estate warming, their hearts aligning, the moment pure with gratitude. Morning light filled the garden, Grace's dark skin calm as she walked with the gardener, peace settling over all. Peaceful. We're home, she said, her voice low, the grass soft. Edward's smile lingered, the peace arriving like a gentle dawn, the garden still, the reward done, the bond secure, the future bright with joy. The butler approached, his face kind, his stance relaxed. Accepting. You changed us, he said, his tone warm, the flowers blooming. Grace's dark skin eased, the peace growing deep, the estate silent, the past forgiven, the community whole, the city skyline clear, their new life beginning. Days later, the estate rang with laughter, Grace's dark skin bright as she worked with Edward, a new harmony unfolding. Happy. We're a team, she said, her voice light, the hall full of voices. The housekeeper watched, her smile steady, the harmony blossoming, the garden warm, her courage a memory, the love guiding them, the reward a foundation, the future open. They stood on the porch, the street quiet below, her hand in his. Content. Always now, he whispered, his tone soft, the sky glowing. The staff smiled, their dark skin radiant, the peace settled deep, the bonds proven true, the challenges gone, the family united, the estate's grandeur a bridge to happiness, their bond lasting. Moral lesson. This story teaches that courage and care can lead to rewards and a family built on trust. What a heartwarming end. Did it inspire you? Like the video, subscribe today, and share your thoughts below. We love hearing from you.